From team principal Mattia Binotto to design head David Sanchez, Ferrari loses more of its irreplaceable employees every year. But is this where the list stops? Or will Ferrari lose even more of its prized engineers? Let's take a look at who's next. Tensions are high in Ferrari's Formula One team once news broke out about David Sanchez leaving in early 2023. Sanchez may have started out his career with McLaren Racing Limited in 2007, but was quickly grabbed up by Scuderia Ferrari in 2012. The person who started out as just a junior aerodynamicist for Renault went on to become one of the bigwigs of the racing world. From chief aerodynamicist in 2016 to head of vehicle conceptualization in 2019, what hasn't this man done? Sanchez has built this year's newest SF23 from the ground up, which was unveiled in February, mere weeks away from his resignation. Responsible for the production of the Ferrari F1 car for the past 2 racing seasons, he was an irreplaceable asset to the team. People often credit him for the success of the 2017 season. The team had been on a streak of failure, but Sanchez's modifications of that year's SF70H model whipped them back into shape. How will Ferrari cope with another season ahead of them? Well, the news itself broke through Sanchez's trusted friend and colleague, Antonio Rendina. On the morning of Thursday, March 9, 2023, saw tweets from Rendina commenting on Sanchez's departure. He also announced that Sanchez was resigning in search of greener pastures and English racing teams. What is it about the English that has the Spanish Frenchman jumping ship? Well, there's tons of rumors flying around online forums since the famed engineer has released no statements himself. While some blame the new team principal, Fred Vasseur, others think otherwise. Fred Vasseur has been compared by some as running the team as tight as Enzo Ferrari runs the whole company. In a statement ahead of the 2023 season, Vasseur vowed to push every department of the team to be better. The guy on the production has to produce a bit faster, or a bit lighter, or a bit cheaper, were Vasseur's words. Some are the opinion that the pressure may have been too much for Sanchez, but some maintain that he was too seasoned to be rattled by a few promises to the press and that leaving was actually a power play by Sanchez. Whether it was a case of overworked employees or an ego tussle, Fred Vasseur seems to be smack in the middle of this controversy. Whatever the cause, all F1 fans can do is speculate at this point. There is, of course, the problem of Sanchez's mandatory gardening leave, where he can't work full-time during his notice period. Ferrari is going to have to scramble to fix in the gaps he'll leave until they replace him, especially with the newest season already underway. Ferrari has already lost out to Red Bull and suffered defeat at the hands of Aston Martin at the Bahrain Grand Prix. Not the best start to the season, I would say, especially with the rocky waters ahead. Godspeed, Ferrari. But David Sanchez isn't the only major employee Ferrari has bid farewell to. Not even 6 months prior to Sanchez's resignation, Ferrari's former team principal, Mattia Binotto, also staged a walkout. Binotto's departure left a hole in the heart of Scuderia Ferrari, and they seem to be more vulnerable than ever to losing more limbs. Mattia Binotto's career at Ferrari spans an even longer time than Sanchez. The engineer joined the ranks of the F1 team back in 1995 and was one of the main people behind its successful run in the early 2000s. To date, that is nearly 28 years of his life that he devoted to the renowned F1 team. In 2012, he was promoted to head of the engine department, and 2016 saw him rise to the level of chief technical officer. 2019 was the year Binotto replaced Maurizio Averambene as team principal and turned the team around. Just 3 years down the line, however, we see Binotto unhappy and resigning from the team as a whole. In November 2022, the famed engineer announced his pending resignation, which went into effect by the end of December of the same year. Unlike Sanchez, however, this French engineer didn't stay mum about the scandal. "I am leaving the company I love," said Binotto in a heartfelt statement, but it's clear that he may not have loved it enough to stay. He claimed to be leaving the company with the serenity of knowing he'd achieved all the objectives set, and those objectives were as simple as bringing Ferrari back into competitive racing. For the time, back in 2016, it had actually seemed impossible for the team to ever make a comeback into the competitive racing world. But Binotto was a key factor in giving it that final push back into the industry. The chief executive at Ferrari himself commended Binotto on his achievement. Binotto led the team back into a position of competitiveness, said Chief Executive Vigna, showcasing his skill. Unfortunately for them, this resignation comes hot on the heels of another disastrous run for Ferrari. The team had already been suffering through 2 stale seasons back-to-back when things finally started looking up for them in 2022. But now it seems they'll have to work even harder to keep spirits up as one of the most competent engineers leaves their ranks. The team's most valuable driver, Charles Leclerc, made his displeasure with the situation known too. In an interview, he commented, "We went from leading the championship with quite a bit of points to being behind by quite a bit of points." Binotto was then replaced by Fred Vasseur, snatched up by Ferrari from the Alfa Romeo team. Now Ferrari seems to be leaking out employees like a water tank with holes in it. And I just hope the tank doesn't burst. Yeesh. Plus, let's just hope that they can save the 2023 season without constant losses to Red Bull as they snatch the trophy from under Ferrari's nose. But there are theories swimming around another acclaimed Ferrari engineer, Simone Resta. There is already confirmation from Vasseur that this leak will be patched up using internal resources. But we didn't know those internal resources he was talking about would be so close to home, with home being the former design team at Maranello. Simone Resta served as the head of Ferrari's design team at Maranello, Italy from 2019 to 2020 and may be brought back in. Although competent, the question still arises, will Simone Resta be able to stay on at Ferrari when their own tenured engineers left? Critics are unsure of the answer and even more uncertain if it would be an answer Ferrari would accept. But the future for Scuderia Ferrari remains murky and unclear, with Red Bull sweeping victories out from under its feet. Although, let's be honest, Ferrari hasn't always had the best track record when it comes to its team principals and engineers. Fred Vasseur would, in fact, mark the team's 5th team principal in under 10 years, a dismal performance history for Ferrari. Pivot to Mercedes, which has kept Toto Wolff on for 10 years, and Red Bull, which has Horton leading them for 18 seasons. These teams understand the importance of a strong engineer at the helm of the ship, and I just hope Ferrari's ship doesn't end up sinking. From Mattia Binotto to David Sanchez, Ferrari has lost 2 of its most tenured and seasoned engineers to date. But is this where the list ends, or should fans start drafting their goodbyes to the next design team head already? Well, I hope Simone Resta can escape the same fate as his predecessors if he does end up replacing Sanchez. I wouldn't want to be in that guy's shoes, that's for sure. Whatever the case, there you have it. That's all for some of the most dramatic walkouts of Ferrari.